Everybody, welcome to the Faith and Fandom Podcast, Artist Alley Aftermath Edition Part 2 for Galaxycon Richmond 2025. This is for Saturday and Sunday, the second half, the 2 days of the show. And there was a lot of show in 2 days, and there was a lot going on. And try and cover it all in a relatively timely time. But yeah, there was, Saturday started off pretty, normally, hotel breakfast, etc. Got out to the show. And, then pretty much in a par for the course moment, I'd spilled some water or something, and was trying to dry that up. And somewhere in the process of me sitting down to kind of get ready for the day, like right after the show had opened, I sat down and I guess the water caused my chair to slide a little bit, but then it caused the legs to overextend and the chair folded in half backwards. So I was getting like a slow suplex, as you just watched me kind of sink and then flip over backwards. And I was trying not to take my banner out. I was trying not to take out the table. I was trying not to roll into the vendor next to me. I was just like all these things, and I'm just trying to carefully stunt fall. And then I just sat there on the ground and laughed for a while. And eventually got up and swapped my chair out for one from behind a curtain. And it was just pretty much chaos. So then had chair anxiety for the rest of the weekend. One thing too is the lady that was on the booth to the left, she's got a really cool aesthetic of corn. Her booth looks like it's a corn cob vibe. And, I just took time to tell her as we were coming in that, her booth's kind of legendary. Like, people talk about the aesthetic of her booth and how memorable it is. And her sister was there, and I just kind of went off for a few minutes just talking about how great she did a job with her booth. And her, she was just really encouraged by that. And, I think my booth looks like a chaotic mess sometimes because I'm a chaotically messy person. Look at my office space, look at my muggle job office. In general, I am not the suavest decorator or designer of spaces. So when somebody really has their visual act together, I do try and plot it. Got to run into Julia, Julia Mann art, who does the really gorgeous color pencils, and she passed me on the way in and gave me a hug. And I don't think I've really seen her since Galaxycon Raleigh. And I think I barely saw her there, but we were across from each other at Richmond last year. So, it was nice to, not just be a burden, and for her to actually see me and want to give me a hug. So I appreciated that. But yeah, there was a trio of cosplayers, that, from the panel. And, we had the Faith and Fandom discussion panel on Saturday around, lunchtime. And, there's a trio of cosplayers that had been at the panel before and have always just been an encouragement. And, they stopped me at the booth one part of the morning to tell me to please keep going, to keep doing this. And they said, it's so important. They said, having representation in a place like this is so important. And so them just saying having a Christian presence at the show meant a lot to them. So that was an encouraging thing. And, at one point, one of them wanted to purchase something, and I was just trying to give it to them. And so we ended up doing a coin toss, and they lost, so they weren't allowed to pay me. So it was cool. I told them to fight me, but yeah. The panel went well in terms of the discussion and everything. We had a good representation. There were some people that were really encouraged by what went on, and there was just some people who had never seen anything like this before, so they were a bit taken back and caught off guard too. But if you've ever heard the discussion panel, it's, I pose the same kind of outline and dialogue, but it's just kind of different every time based on people's responses. But yeah, there are people that were all over the place, including a young lady who had considered going into the nun profession, the sisterhood, I guess, of that. So it was a lot of good discussion. We also had a family member of one of the founding people of Love Thy Nerd was in the room, and so it was pretty cool. But once I got out of the panel and sat back down, I kind of really zoned out. I still talked to people when they came up and everything, but I was happy just to kind of get that weight, because there's a constant anxiety before panels. Because I know it's a really one-shot opportunity. If I have a bad sermon on a Sunday, I know there's a good chance the majority of the people in that room are going to be back for another Sunday, even if I don't have my best day. And that panel by myself is a lot. And I think that's the first time I've done that panel by myself in a very long time. Because usually I've had Ashley with me, or Deborah, or somebody else. And this was the first time I've done it alone in a long time. So it was a interesting experience with that. And yeah. Let's see. What else? The Tuckweiler family is a family that had frequently been coming by the booth. Their kids getting sketches. Their kids wearing awesome cosplays and stuff like that. And I'm just really grateful for them. They've been really supportive of everything I do for years now, and I'm always grateful to see them coming. And their kids had really dope cosplays, and their youngest son was just really excited about swords and sketches, and he was getting Zorro's swords from One Piece, and honestly I was a little jealous. I almost bought a sword because his swords were so cool. But the Tuckweiler family were really encouraging, and came back around. And yeah. And also, this is just another thing that happened when we were getting set up. I mentioned earlier that my daughter, who's 17 and off living at another school and everything, that, I was really proud of her, and she had grown so much, and, I trusted her so much more to go out and do adulty things. But at the same time, Saturday morning when we came in, the corn lady's chair was blocking our path, and she had stuff sitting in it. And she was literally just petrified to move the chair or ask her to move the chair. That's because I was trying to restock the bookshelf. And I was asking her to go around to the back side of the table, move the stuff off of the top of the tub that had the books, and scoot the tub towards me. Because normally if I just reach under the table and pull the tub out, there's going to be stuff that falls everywhere and makes a huge mess. I've spilled so many cases of markers and cups of coffee and stuff like that. So it's important to make sure we approach it the right way. And so I sent her around, and then she walked back. She's like, I can't get in. There's a chair in the way. And, I just said, dude, I trust you to walk through metropolitan cities. Well, you can't move past a chair? What if there's a chair in a metro city? And I tried not to be overly douchey about it, or to downplaying to it, but it was the kind of the conversation of just how that was playing out. But we worked it out, but it just reminded me she's still a kid and has kid tendencies even at 17. But yeah, the Tuckweiler family was really encouraging. Another just really interesting thing, as we were sitting there, somebody came by the booth and commented on my Bluey sketch, and I looked up, and it was Guillermo and Nandor from what we do in the shadows. Like the main actors from the show were at my booth commenting on my Bluey sketch, and then they just kept walking. And I was like, hey, thanks for being here. They're like, yeah. And just kept walking. But I was like, literally, 2 celebrities just came up to the booth for, out of nowhere. I also got to meet again, technically in person, Jeff Weimer, who's one of our Patreon supporters. And, he stopped by, and it was good to talk to him and get to see him again. I know we had met last year, but he's it's been a more active conversation and relationship just over the last year. It was great to meet him, and yeah, it really was. And there was I've got something in my notes that says Demon Slayer sticker, but I don't know what it is. So I'm gonna say that out loud in hopes that it helps me remember. But either way, there was one trio of young ladies that came through, and I said something to the effect of whatever, and they said, you don't want us, or you don't want this one girl around your booth. She'll bring all the drama, she'll bring all the trouble, whatever else. Oh, and it said they're talking about the God is a fan of you. They're like, they said God needs to be a fan of her because she's causing us all stress. And so they sat there and just kind of talked about this one girl, and they said, you know what? I caused you so much trauma. I'm going to buy a shirt for my grandma. And I thought it was one of the funniest phrases. They said, you know what? We caused your booth trauma. I'm going to buy my grandma a t-shirt. And so I was like, our shirt's officially, that's a new reason for purchase, is trauma response for your grandma. Also got to talk to Joe Somerville, who was a young man who's making new art and comics, and I've got a message to respond to him in my inbox. I need to get that done too. And then towards the end of Saturday, there was a dude that came by who freaked out over my Senior Pink sketch. Now, Senior Pink is an odd character from one arc in One Piece. And he's a dude who dresses like a giant baby, but once you learn his backstory, it's kind of tragic, but he's also super cool. And I really enjoy Senior Pink, so I sketched him, and he was one of those sketches that I said in my heart, no one is ever buying this thing. Because I can look at my sketchbook now and show you sketches that I am 100% confident will never sell. And then they end up selling sometimes, and it's just really surprising to me. But yeah, that was a thing. But we talked about horror, and we talked a lot about interesting things, and they had me do a sketch commission of Monarch from Venture Brothers. And yeah, another thing that was happening a lot during the show was there's a Wi-Fi issue, and one of our booth neighbors was literally losing hundreds of dollars of sales because they couldn't get their Wi-Fi hotspot to work. And I'm not saying I know better than they know, but what I do know is that I didn't have any problems with it because I wasn't trying to use Wi-Fi. I was just using my phone's data. And, I tried to offer some suggestions or whatever, but they were ending up spending like $90 on internet that they couldn't get to work because, it's one of those things you can't tell an adult sometimes how to do things if they're not listening, and which is why it's different between a congregation versus a commercial thing. But yeah, I wanted to help. When we got done, we played pool at the hotel, and I was really grateful because this was some of the most time I got to spend with my daughter all year. And maybe for a long time, almost 5 complete days together, which was really great. We were exhausted. We picked out the song. We went over it. I tried to print it out. I failed miserably at the hotel because Ultimate Guitar has done a thing now where printing their music is really hard. Or at least it was on my part from the hotel. But yeah. And Sunday morning, came in to get ready for the con. We packed up our hotel room. And there was a lady named Andrea Rose Washington who is an author from a couple rows down. And she just came over to say, I love everything here. She loved what we were doing. And it was a lot. I got, out of all the stress and long nights and anxiety and everything else, there were really a lot of encouragement, and it really ramped up Saturday and Sunday as we were heading into things. But literally my first interaction Sunday was Miss Rose Washington letting me know that she loved everything at our booth. Pretty quickly we decided to head out to go to Geek Church, and the room was B10. And I've done Geek Church at Galaxycon Richmond since this show started. And so I've never really thought twice about much changes. And so I get there and I can't find B10. And I finally asked somebody and they said, yeah, it's across the street and all the way around to the other side of the building. I'm just so confused. So we haul boogie, we cross the street, and Rose and I are just like, what is happening? We've never had to leave the building before because she's been with me for 5 years of this show. We come around, and you literally go the full length of the next building, then take a right and go the full length of that hallway. It felt like 3 miles away. We finally get there. Y'all, it was an entire theater. An entire theater. And it's miles away from everything. It's huge. And like all of a sudden, all these anxieties were just washing over me of like, you are going to have like 20 people in this room and it's going to look like ridiculously empty. And you're going to focus on that. And you can't focus on that. And so I'm like trying to pre-plan to talk myself out of all of this. And yeah, it was a mess. And I was like, I don't know if this is an opportunity or if this is a punishment or what's going on. But I was just like, all right, Lord. And then normally in the panel rooms, one of the tech people from the show will be there to make sure you have all your needs met. Well, this was not like any other panel room where you just had an aux cord and an HDMI cable. This was a full theater with a giant projector and a soundboard and all these other things, and nobody showed up to help me get this stuff together. Nobody. And so I'm doing my best DJ setup stuff to try and rig all this equipment together on time, and it was moderately high pressure. And then the security wouldn't let the people in to the hallway 4 minutes before the show opened. And before the panel opened. And so like they wanted people to leave the room who had already come in and sat down. And I'm like, don't do this. And it was kind of a mess in that capacity. But we came in, and honestly, I was floored with the fact that when the time opened, literally like 50 people easily walked in the first burst. And I was like, oh, that's a lot of people for Richmond. And then they kept going, and overall we had somewhere about 85-ish people, between 85 and 90, that showed up to Geek Church. Some people had to leave because scheduling stuff and things like that, but we had almost 90 people like in that space, and it was kind of astonishing. And worship was moderately chaotic. I couldn't print out the chords, so I had them written down. And we sang Broken Pieces or Broken Vessels. And then we did Amazing Grace. And there's a lady in the audience, and she's been there every time. And she sings beautifully, but she sings like so good, like operatically, that it's just like, whoa. And so like we're up there just barely singing Amazing Grace, and she's just killing it. And I'm like, It's such a neat sound because we've got different people, different sounds, different places. And even later after Geek Church, one of the t-shirt vendors in the hallway was like, yo, that singing was great. And so it's just an interesting vibe and experience with that. And yeah, the message went good. The message went about as good as I could hope for. The response was good after it. And as we were packing up the cables, Mike, who is in charge of booking all the panels for Geek Church, for all the Galaxycons, said, hey, it's nice to meet you in person. I'm the one who books you for all your panels. And short version, he said, listen, as long as you're doing it, we're going to give it to you. He said they like what I do. They like what I bring. He said it was a good crowd in there. And he said that one of the reasons he put me in the room today was because he knows sometimes we sing, and he didn't want it to be like something that would be disturbing necessarily to other panels. So he put us down on the far end for that reason. And to be fair, he's right. But it was encouraging to hear from his mouth that if I apply for it, they're going to give it to me. So that was super nice. Yeah. There is a gentleman named Wes that came by after Geek Church, and he was very excited and just moved by how it went. He said that he saw it. He ended up with a 3-day pass, and he saw it on there, and he didn't know it was going to be blasphemous. If he didn't know if it was going to be a mockery. And usually before Geek Church, I'll make a warning. It's like, hey, if you're here for that, leave, because this is real church. And he was just such a blessing and encouragement. And he went on to say at one point, like talking at the booth, he's like, you have an anointing, you have a presence, you can tell that God's in this. And he, just basically edified the daylights out of me. And was like, for all the insecurities that bubble up inside me, he literally felt like he was just pouring anointing oil over all of my stresses and anxieties in that capacity. So Wes was a huge blessing. Like I wanted to do a praise dance as he was talking. And again, we had more people came by that made sure to tell me, don't stop doing this. I got to make art trades with the corn lady for some cool stickers. That was cool. And then a couple of the cosplayers who had been coming by and had been encouraging us all weekend were asking me, how do we deal with negative people who are being mean towards me with this? And I kind of shared my insight on it. But yeah. There was a family that came... There was a family that came to the church service with, One Piece stuff that was really neat. Just the Tuckwilers and everybody else were really encouraging. Then there was a cosplayer named that was dressed as Nightcrawler that came by, and they saw my Nightcrawler sticker and freaked out. And they were like, they even got excited when it had a Bible verse on it, and they were asking how much it was. I was like, actually, I was going to give you one of these. And like, she was so pumped. And then, they were excited about other things. And these, like, I've done everything I need to do at the show at this point. Like, I've done the sermons, I've done the conversations. At this point, I'm just like trying to bless people and peace out. So I was like, I'll give you buttons. Don't worry about it. And then, I gave them stickers and I gave them buttons. And then I told him about the devotionals, and she was just like really freaked out. I was like, oh, these are so great. I love this idea. And like super, super pumped. And like, again, all the encouragement just kind of like bottlenecked at the end of the whole event. And I was like, you know what? Just pick a book and you can have a book, you and your friend. Because she had a friend dressed as the human version of McGann from Young Justice. And like, she's like, no, she's like, I'm going to pay you for this. And we did the coin flip and I lost. So I let her pay for one book out of 2. But like, she said that this was the best part of the show and like just really encouraged. So I was grateful for that and just to be able to do there. So one thing I wanted to add is, there was a young lady that brought Moogle mail. I think I mentioned this earlier in the podcast. But there's a young lady that brought Moogle mail as a cosplayer. And in the Moogle mail, she had like stickers and cards and stuff. But she had a scripture that was dope. And, I thought that was not like a hard rickroll or anything, but I thought that was a pretty smooth way of, sharing the gospel through cosplay interaction. And I really wish I had opened her Moogle mail sooner so that I could have seen it and like just given her props on that. So I'll probably make a special post about it on Facebook later. But man, I was pretty darn impressed with that when I saw it later and afterwards. But yeah, that was just neat. One of the things as I was looking back through the photos, I was like, oh yeah, I need to make a note out of that. And another cool thing is there was a room that had giant statues of anime characters. And I guess they've been at Galaxycon forever. I just never make it to these parts of the building. But I got to see a Luffy statue and a Zoro statue, and I thought they were pretty freaking baller for themselves. There was also a proud dad cosplayer. It was a dude who was dressed in New Balances and khaki shorts with the the hat and the Bret Hart looking sunglasses, and he was also really cool to talk to. But he just wore a sign with suspenders that says, "I am so proud of you, love Dad," and I thought that was really great. One of the coolest cosplays I saw was a cross between Rapunzel and Jinx from Arcane. I just thought that was pure fire. Yeah, it was just a really neat experience overall. Also, I bought a Snorlax sticker, which is the first sticker on my pseudo new vehicle, which I thought was great. And the scripture that was on the card inside the Moogle mail was Romans 15:13. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with the hope by the power of the Spirit. I mean, that's just about as baller as you can do it. Also, I saw one of the first Inshuti Gatwa 13th Doctor cosplays. No, 15th Doctor cosplays. That was really, really great. There was also a cosplayer of Dayman from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and he gave me a little finger toboggan that says, here's a kitten mitten. And it was just cool. And this was the first show I've been to since I've watched Freeran. And so I saw a ton of Freeran cosplayers that I guess I must have just missed before. And then there was one lady who I interacted with who was in a Nacho Libre cosplay, who had a tote bag that said the Lord's Chips. And she was a freaking delight of a human being to get to hang around and talk to. I also saw a really great Zelda Echoes of Wisdom cosplay. Just really, really well done. With that, I saw some Dan to Dan cosplays. I don't know. I just really enjoyed what I got to see and experience across the board with those things. And yeah. We also had like some really great interactions because of 21 Pilots people. The push on through sticker was catching people's attention. I saw 4 people this weekend with tattooed lyrics of pushed on through on their bodies, but I talked to 2 different couples in one day that were heavily invested in 21 Pilots, and we made good connections over that. And there was a Clancy cosplayer, and I may have mentioned this on the other podcast, that gave me a coffee-drenched, edge-burned map of Trench wrapped up in a Clancy bracelet. And they were the absolute best. I need to tag them on Instagram when I post all of this. But I was able to give them stickers and just have encouragements and like literally connecting over music. And we had really good conversations over 21 Pilots, which is something I love. But yeah, it was just the whole Sunday was a really great experience. I already signed up for next year, and I ran around and got some random things. Like I bought 3 metal swords to go in my little man bun. So if you catch me a photo or whatever I've got a sword. I got a katana, a broadsword, and a I don't know, like a musketeerish type sword, but they're metal and they're going to go in my hair and they're really cool. Got some stickers and stuff like that and some gifts for some friends and family. And yeah, I we headed out. We loaded up pretty quickly, drove my daughter back to Durham for school. We sang Rent for 2 full hours at full tilt. We got sheets for dinner, dropped her off, and I made it back to my house right around 1 a.m. And then I was out the door to go to my Muggle job at 7:30 a.m. So no sleep till Brooklyn. I was trying. And but yeah, made it through. Got it that far. But yeah, it was good. Overall, it was a great experience. On a financial scale, I made the booth back. Maybe the booth and one night in the hotel. So the booth cost $400, and I know I made $400 in credit card sales. So I covered the booth cost with that. But that's, not hotel meals and everything else. But again, because of the generosity of our Patreon supporters, we're able to actually not be in dire straits with this. My car managed to last all the way drive back, and I'm hopefully getting the gas cap replaced so that it will not check out and leave me stranded somewhere. So yeah, but it was good. So before I bounce out of here, I want to take a moment to thank our Patreon supporters, because y'all literally helped make all of this happen. We have a new Patreon supporter. Hi. Thank y'all for being awesome. The Fab Quack. I bet this is the Quack and Bush family. Yeah. My money's on it's the Quack and Bushes. Because they're cool like that. I could be wrong. But yeah. Either way, I'd like to take a moment to thank our Patreon supporters. Fab Quack. Rivka and Tristan Birch, Dorothy Martin, Michelle Stewart, Lynn Turner. I gotta click on the right thing. Sorry. Fab Quack, Rivka and Tristan Birch, Dorothy Martin, Michelle Stewart, Lynn Turner, David Brooks, Jeff Weimer, Colin Sproles, Jamie Montgomery, the Coleman family, Jonathan Herman, Ron Petit, Gear Saber Cosplay, Scott Ward, Alicia Glenn, Jay Sheed, Jason Crutchfield, Mike Perna, Todd Turner, John Jacobs, Zach Harris, Caleb Grimm, Jeanette Skaggs, Jason Bullock, Christina Ray, Sarah Lewis, Patrick Gale, Rebecca Godlove, and Adam Davis. Thank you all for your contributions, for your caring, and for helping make all of what we do possible. You are the biggest blessing in the most genuine ways. Thank you, because I got to see people cry over excitement this weekend. I got to see people feel seen and heard and encouraged. We got to have 80 people in a theater for church on a Sunday morning that they had to pay to get into. Come on. All of this got to happen because of y'all's generosity and your encouragement. So thank you, because you guys helped make all of this possible. But yeah, I technically think I have April off of cons, and then kind of hit the ground running in May, because I've got weddings and kids have dance competitions and all this other stuff going on in April. But we'll see, because I'm never quick to be still. But thank y'all for taking time to listen, and I hope to see you at a con real soon. Bye.